Good to go? All right. Right. Hello and welcome everyone to the launch of our Center for Cultural Leadership on that auspicious note. And I must begin with thanking a couple of our learners who, when they realized that we are launching this center, put together the video. And they also taught me a couple of things today. The rag that we just learned, apparently it's called Madhuvanti. And tradition has it that it's played between 4 p.m. and 8 p.m. And the rasa it is supposed to evoke is something that brings friendship and partnership. So we thought it's an appropriate raga to be played when we launched this important partnership with Indic Academy. And we have a responsibility of disambiguating what we mean by Indic Renaissance, what do we mean by cultural leadership, and what do we refer to when we say this is the source code, and why is it the source code. So over the next hour or so, we have with us the founder of Indic Academy, HariKiran Ji, also the founder of Network for Cultural Entrepreneurs, and my colleague and friend, Dr. Pankaj Saxena, to discuss these three things. What do we mean when we say there is an Indic Renaissance or the probability of that? And why is culture at the root of this possibility? And then what is this idea of cultural leadership? What is it that we are setting out to do? So I'll begin first by asking HariKiran Ji to talk to us a little bit about the idea of Indic Renaissance itself. All of your activities with Indic Academy have been around this theme. How do we actually explain this to ourselves? What is the story that we're telling ourselves? How do we ensure that this is not some grand delusion of a bearded middle-aged guy? And why is it relevant for the world? Why should the world sit up and take notice of what we are calling is our Renaissance?
Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. I must also thank Shobit and Sahil for reaching out and making this partnership possible. I'm very delighted that we're coming together to form this joint venture and joint initiative. Task ahead. And as you have framed it very nicely, you framed it as the source code for my sense is, first and foremost, we lack a sense of a global renaissance. We severely lack a sense of identity. And this whole thing of, as I keep saying, cliche, where there are two kinds of people in India. Those who believe India is a civilizational state, and those 47. So that's the key. And the whole narrative today, a significant amount of culture wars or culture clash is really between these two set of people. That they say that there was never anything called India. A conglomeration or so many princely states, and British gave us this country. Whereas we are a civilization state. We have been there from several thousand years as Bharat, and we need to recognize that. So I think in sort of a simplistic terms, in terms of identity issue, and how people see these two identity and what the versus 1947. Once you frame that, then the question arises, why do we need to even work on it? Those who believe that yes, we are a civilization state, why do we need to why do we need anybody else's acceptance? Person. So do I need somebody's to say yes? It's a free country, it's a free speech. Somebody says no, you're not. So what? I think that problem, what we see as a problem and what they don't see as a problem, is that every single issue, all the narrative in my mind is centered around that single issue of identity. And it is important. What China did, for example, and the way they fixed it, and the consistency of action across the citizens, which you do not see in a large part of our economic growth is hampered because of this lack of identity, this sense of pride. Defining the problem and the importance of it. And then, of course, how do we go about it? How do we go about fixing this issue? Problem that we can talk about it. Pankaj, do you want to say something?
Good to go.
Yeah.
Yes, I would like to discuss a little about culture, or how it is defined. I won't go into the dictionary definitions primarily because they are boring. Culture, we have to discuss where culture starts and where nature ends, because these are the two entities which are again and again talked about, again and again repeated in the discourse that goes on in scientific arena and also in the cultural arena. So I would like to just mention, not quote, just mention the idea of Edward Wilson. He is said to be the Darwin of our age. And he discusses a very, very important idea which he has scattered across his work over 5 or 6 decades. He talks about a nature-culture continuum. Because a lot of ideologies posit nature against culture, or culture is something which destroys nature, builds on its ashes. But Edward Wilson argues that nature, culture, they are in a continuum. Culture actually is genetically encoded in us. A lot of our tendencies around which social institutions are created, they are actually hardwired into us. So when you think about this idea, and when you think about what we did in India, or what Indian Hindu sages did, what they wrote in our scriptures, there is a very, very famous concept which now has become actually quite talked about, at least in our circles, about the idea of dharma and how the sense of dharma is created. There is a cosmic rhythm, which the cosmic order, which creates a rin, a debt on any individual who is born. Because just by being born, just by living, we actually take benefit of certain institutions, natural and cultural. And in order to pay back to those traditions, natural and cultural, that is called dharma. Those are our duties, and that is called dharma. So we have always sort of thought in this continuum of nature-culture continuum. Now to bring in just one more strand of idea, that what can be called culture and what cannot be called as culture. Lauren Isley, a very non-mainstream philosopher of the West, he is not very famous now, but he is actually, according to me, at least one of the greatest philosophers that the West ever fielded. He says that nature is the first order, because in nature, everything limits itself. So if you are a top predator, then your number is very limited. But if you are, suppose if you are a herbivore like deer, then your numbers are too much, but then you are also hunted. So everyone at the same time is also the hunter and being hunted himself. When man actually created culture, when Homo sapiens, when in the entire history of evolution, when we created culture, somewhere around the start of agricultural society, we actually came out of that food chain. We stopped being the hunted, and we became even greater hunters than before. So we destroyed a very basic natural order, that we came out of the food chain and we became very many. Culture actually stepped in and created what they now call as arbitrary rules. But these rules are just in, according to me at least, a stand in nature. Where we have broken the laws of nature, we bring in culture and we continue so that we also have some rules. We do not destroy the food chain, not just the food chain, but the entire cosmic order. When you start seeing culture through this eye, through these ideas, you see that the modern Western civilization is not culture, because they have broken not just the first order, the order of nature, they have also broken the second order, the order of culture. Because first, we will not go according to the natural order. We are not in the food chain. We are secure in our rights. We do not want to be a part of nature. And then we also do not want to play any duties, which culture tells us. We do not want to be inside the institution of marriage, inside the institution of greater institutions like in India, like Jati, Varn, or any other institution that we want to talk about. So any civilization which destroys these two orders, at least in my view, it cannot claim to be a culture anymore. And in that respect, if we see our culture, our tradition, we have always maintained that balance between nature and culture, and which we can bring in later on, that we have also improved on it, which I think I should leave the strand here, and then I'll pick it up, that how we propose to improve on it, not just get limited at nature, but improve on it.
Yeah, I mean, this is at a very, very foundational level. One would say that there are two inflection points in our that we were a self-organizing, self-evolving, self-correcting culture in the terms that you talked about. Till the first invasion, 1100 or 1000 AD. So if that is wherein there's an external agent that has come in and sort of disturbed the harmony, and then we had the second with the colonial rule. Now, where, of course, there has been a very, very systematic, where it was destruction of this harmony, or destruction of this very roots with the nature, as you point of view. These two inflections, or these two interventions were there. I am not basis to the intervention, because that to me, that period, the classical period, the study of culture during the class, different, you can cut and slice and dice it into different eras, but we can see the changes, especially in post-colonial, how there has been a very, very systematic attempt to destroy. In my opinion, well, that is, you can argue that that's a violent intervention that has happened, again, as a part of a global nature process. My point is, from 1947, did we or did we not need an intervention, a state intervention, set right some of the issues that came up because of this conscious and deliberate and malicious destruction. And I think that is where our challenge of the separate dichotomical structure of tradition and modernity. One is a very, very asystematic specific issue relating to India, the post independent what we need to do, and one is, which is a global phenomena, the tussle between the tradition. So there are actually two levels at which we need to address this.
So I think we've got a couple of themes emerging, and HariKiran Ji, I wanted to just bring it back to you in the context of the quest for identity, and also the need for for people who can assert it. And you've spoken about this in the past with the sort of framework that you had of protection, preservation, and promotion. What is the dimension of promotion, and what is the link between identity formation and the promotional aspect of culture, in your opinion?
The promotion is again at two levels. Promotion and promotion to the Indian audiences. Because of the issue that we had since independence, assumed to be an Indic identity, a large majority of Indians who do not share this sense of identity so the promotion is not just a global phenomenon. The promotion is, when I say promotion, it is promotion to our own family. The promotion is Indians, right? And decolonizing is promotion, because we need to back to our own selves, who remain in form Indians, but within they are not Indics. So that we have to promote our identity. So in a way, there is a Garvapasi kind of a thing. I'm using Garvapasi because it is used in others. I'm saying we need to do Garvapasi of our own people to bring them back into our own fold. So there's a promotion that's required, and that's what one word to say is deracinated, right? So bringing back, that is a bigger challenge. So I in my that how do I decolonize 500 million Indians, right? And how do I offer my in an authentic form to people who are already consuming it, but not acknowledging it, right? People who are there and they're not acknowledging it, and they're not malicious. It's just that because of the various gateways that we have in the that you have, which are very keen on appropriation, or as Rajiv says, digestion, and so they the source is from our civilization. So we are having a two-pronged issue in audience, 500 million global audience. This is a problem. This is a 3 comma problem, a 1 billion problem, or a 1 billion challenge.
To take it back to what
that's
Pankaj
the
said, and
yeah.
sorry, there was a bit of a lag, Regis.
I'm saying that's the nature. And come back to what are the mechanisms by which we can go about it. What kind of fortunate that there's a global demand for our culture. We're very fortunate. I do not a culture where there is no global demand. We have nothing to offer, right, to the world. Then we would have a different set of bringing back our sense of identity. But here is a situation wherein there's a global demand for our culture. So can we use that as a tailwind of preservation and promotion? Preservation and promotion. Can we do that? That is what we need to think about.
Work issues at your end, Hariji. Some of the sorry, able to hear us?
Yes.
Yeah, I think we got most of what you're saying, but there was a bit of a lag from your end. So there was, I think there were some parts which got cut out. But the sort of takeaways from what you just mentioned. One is, of course, the moral imperative of maintaining a cosmic order and finding a culture that is able to bring it back, that Pankaj mentioned. And the second thing that you brought, the dimension that you added, is the demand that the world has for Indian culture. The fact that we have something to offer to the world, and how do you then find the means to promote it? Right? So I actually want to then focus on the question of promotion, and I think that's linked to the idea of leadership, because we are making a claim that there is something, as a basis for leadership, and you can actually situate leadership in a cultural context. So could you talk to us a little bit about what are the forces that you think are helping us think about a global demand for Indian culture, and what are the dynamics of cultural leaders that you foresee, if you have to create a generation of such leaders who are able to represent it?
Yes. So if you look at UN sustainable goals, like I said, our civilization culture has two elements to it. One is contextual and time sensitive. One is timeless. We need to set right through our history books and other aspects of it, right? So because a lot of things has been appropriated, and we all are aware of the challenge. Yes, we need to know that we were the ones who invented these things, and which is not recorded or not acknowledged. All those things, all the scientific advancements that we did. Fine, so we will recognize it. Okay, then what, right? But then there are certain aspects which are timeless, which emanate from four aspects, which is peace, health, happiness, and sustainability. If you link it to the UN sustainability goals, all these four elements, Indian civilizational culture has solutions to offer. Order that he's talking about, the dharma that he's talking about, Pankaj was talking about, is once you ingrain that, then the peace is an outcome. There is only peace, right? Then health, both in terms of yoga and Ayurveda health, and in terms of happiness, all our spirituality is centered the permanent happiness that every human being seeks. And sustainability, our entire agriculture practices centered around sustainability, which goes back to the Pankaj's point on how we address the nurture, and how there is really no border between nurture and culture. I mean, nature and culture. elements, right? We have a solution to offer. So therefore, we need to be having the courage of the conviction that yes, we are these 4 elements, and therefore we need to occupy that space and the thought leadership space. That goes back to identity. So therefore, fixing the identity problem and then promoting is the natural outcome. The 5C framework, right? Now I have I here into a new theory that is being developed in United States now of a new class of people, creators, right? Not this one. I'll come to this. You can turn this off. I'll come back to this. A new class of people called the cultural creatives. Society that I was telling Pankaj, yes, this is a global problem of the fight between tradition and modern. And there's a new class that is emerging in the United States called. And if you look at the what do they look for? There's a book by Paul Ray, the cultural creators. I'll just read out some qualities that they're looking. They love nature and are deeply concerned about its destruction, right? Are strongly aware of the problems of the whole planet. Or for consumer goods, if you knew the money would go to clean up the environment and stop global warming. Give a lot of importance to developing and maintaining your relationships with other people and bringing out their unique gifts. Volunteer for one or more good causes. Care intensely about both psychological and spiritual development. Concerned about the role of religious right in politics. Want more equality for women at work. Children's education and well-being. They tend to be rather optimistic about our future and distraught of cynical and pessimistic view. Want to be involved in creating new and better. Big corporations are doing the name of making more profits. Dislike all the emphasis on modern culture and on success and making it on getting and spending on wealth and luxury goods. People and places that are exotic and foreign and like experiencing and learning about others' way of life. Now, these are the qualities of a cultural creator. Now you see relationships, maintaining relationship, maintaining, talking about sustainability, talking about environment, right? You can read, if I'm reading it, I'm saying, oh, they like to do Panchamaya, you know. So this is what they're talking about. Phrasing it into these 5 C's, right? The cultural creatives, these 20 points, I'm summarizing into 5 C's for your easy remembrance. 1, right? When I say consciousness and spirituality, I'm using the word consciousness here from a perspective of is care. What is care? Care is health care and yoga care, right? Beef eating and all that is gone. Now they're all into vegans and vegetarian. The biggest trend is that. So cuisine, right? Then Fifth is cultural experiences. If you see, one of the points that they talk about is experiencing authentic thing. So I am saying these five C's: consciousness, care, cuisine, craft, and cultural experiences. Cultural creatives are what all these five C's, the mother of all these five C's is Bharat. Right? So this, and if we don't recognize this trend and do something about it, where are we? So if we want to aspire to be a thought, all that, if we just cater to these five C's globally and see that if we are offering these five C's, the promotion is there. And the promotion in sorry to use this, deracinated brethren also is that, because once Julia Roberts is doing something, then we will also do it. So automatically it happens. Now the forces that are happening and why we need this leadership, and we'll talk about that. Now, if you can share that slide. So here is my porter for marketplace. So I define the marketplace for votes, ideas, and products. Now, the thing is, all the five forces get up in the morning to conquer the marketplace. Colonial, we have seen in the recent past also that they are given some $19 million to New York Times and Washington Post, blah blah blah, whatever they have been doing, right? All of Africa is gone. The whole, we have seen the effect of the neo-colonial forces, which is China. Through their financing, through their products, through multiple means, they would like to control the marketplace, right? Then we are seeing theological twist, and they are trying to conquer the marketplace. Then we have the elites. I'm just calling them elites here because, I mean, people, you can call them left liberals, and you can have all these other names, but I'm just saying an elite. And if you look at the cause of why an elite is trying to, is because first and foremost, an elite here has distanced himself from the tradition. An elite has superior, right? So the moment you define yourself as not part of the society, define yourself in such level, then the moment you're wrong, you don't have the courage to say that you're wrong. And that's where the journey of cognitive dissonance, starts. Then every day they're trying to prove a point. So they're actually getting up in the morning and trying to prove a point. They're right, even though internally they know they're wrong. So this cognitive struggle for cognitive consonance strives their action every day in the morning. Dharmic forces. Now the dharmic forces don't get up in the morning and saying, I want to conquer this marketplace. Tell me You get up in the morning to go about your life. The difference between all these 5 forces and force does not get up. It is not in his or her nature to conquer something, saying that, look, I want to control the marketplace. I want to go about my own life. Seek to change the narrative. All the other 5 forces seek to change the narrative. And that is why you see that great change that we are supposed to have seen from 2014, we don't see that change because we don't get up in the morning and saying that we are expecting some messiah to change it. How do we go about saying that, look, there is a need for in the marketplace for difference? Now, there are 2 ways. One, because there's a global demand for our culture, we need to build more cultural which are offering authentic products and services. And therefore, from an economic point of view, we can make an impact. And as leaders, politicians, saying that, look, there's a cultural constituency that you need to think about. And this is where the Center for Cultural Leadership is very, very important. Of a cultural leadership, a constituency-wise cultural leadership leader that we want to produce, and we should produce, is to market to the member of the parliament and saying that, look, there is a cultural constituency other than your communal, than your construction or whatever you're doing, other than your all the other things. There is a reason that only 70% or 65% vote. There is a 35% which is silently. You focus on that 30%, and that 30% is the cultural constituency of the constituency, the cultural constituents of the cultural constituency. Then you will have a better chance of getting elected, rather than saying that, okay, I'm giving you a gas cylinder and I'm building a toilet and I'm giving you some money as a dole. Therefore, our center has to, thank you, you can close the slide now. This is what we need to do. We need to build leaders, cultural leaders, and this is important. We have a lot of specialists. You can see now we have specialists are aplenty. We have fantastic specialists, which is why I said we should work on that range and develop a course on why we need generalists as cultural leaders. A dimensional framework comes in, because a generalist is a person who will enable the specialist. And aim should be to nurture cultural leaders constituency wise, who will put a mirror to the local politician and impress upon him, or think it from a Vedantic point of view. There's a gross and there is subtle, right? The gross is your caste and your communal and your cash that you give. And the moment you recognize the subtleness as something that you need to nurture and nourish for your own selfish gain to get elected, that time we won't see the change. As long as I give a cylinder and I'm getting elected, I won't see a change in the narrative. But you will see a change in the narrative the moment he nurtures that, and he's
Just want to summarize the thread that we've stitched together here. Now, there is the philosophical vacuum, and there is a desperate need when you think about the global grand challenges from immigration to poverty to loneliness to xenophobia. At the root of it is a spiritual void, and there is a philosophical void. And the Indic knowledge systems and the Indian cultural traditions have the vitality to supply the thought at a global level to fill that void. So that is establishing the why of why we need something like this, right? But from there, you also need to have a sense of conviction. And at Rashtram, we say this in two terms. One, you need to be self-aware. The leaders that we are going to produce at Rashtram should be self-aware and civilizationally assured. The guilt and shame that the colonization process has given us at a civilizational scale has to be replaced with a knowledge and a self-assured behavior, and that is the basis for which we can through which we can actually look to promote what we have as our civilizational inheritance. So there is the why, and there is the product and the service or the experience that we can offer, but then there is the what as well, right? So in that context, there are two things that you've laid out. One is that there is a system at play there, right? And that system is working as a flywheel against your civilizational interest, and we should recognize this. And we should therefore also have a call to action to make sure we have leaders who are able to represent this as generalists. So the what is having a set of new leaders who are able to understand the world the way it is and are able to represent their civilizational inheritance in a self-assured manner. And then how the part of how we do this is of course the six-dimensional framework that we're going to talk about. But I wanted to get Pankaj's view on this, right? Pankaj, you started off on this thread of Rit, Rin, and Dharm, and you said that there was a way in which this tradition recognized. So if you're going to offer this as a course, and if you're going to tell our young leaders that if you get intimate with this knowledge system, you will have the ability to represent and potentially solve world global brand challenges. How is it that it happened in our tradition? How did the high philosophy become a lived wisdom?
Yes, actually, in our culture, in our tradition, the central value which we all agree upon, the central spiritual thread which ran through all of our, not just through Indian arts or Indian aesthetics, but also through our sciences and through our daily life, is the thread of Hindu darshan through the practice of meditation or sadhana. So it was not like as if everyone meditated 8 hours every day, but there were significant amount of people doing that. And they were the cultural leaders in our society. Somehow they ran the institutions. They were at the top or at very influential positions in these institutions. And it is through the wisdom of these people that the same thread got woven into every field of a human being's life. Coming from that, we have also discussed, we have quite used the word deracinate, that our generations now are deracinated. One way to reverse that, in my view, is to tell, actually, we all agree upon that our culture or dharmic culture, Sanatan dharmic culture, had a way to tackle all of these problems. But how to inform our new generations of what it was, how to reverse the process of deracination, how to, like HariKiran Ji also said, one market to capture is to again start telling our stories from our point of views. Actually, if you go to the UK or the US, if they want to create a movie or want to create a TV series of, let's say, of 2000 years ago, of the pagan world that was there. So even after destroying all of that, they have ready-made books. They have a lot of research which is called social history, and they can go to that and reconstruct almost the entire, through a certain lens, of course, but they can construct the entire story of that era. What we have done in the past 100 to 150 years is that we have stopped telling stories. We are the nation, we are the civilization of the greatest storytellers in the world. I mean, we have not just the Puranas, we tell stories even inside the Upanishads, which are the condensed form of Hindu darshan or Hindu philosophy. So one thing is that we have stopped doing is that we have stopped telling our stories to our people. So I think, in my view, the greatest market to capture right now is to tell the story that how culture played a very significant role and still does in every individual's life. For example, there are a lot of hidden roles that every culture plays in the life of an individual. The tragedy of civilization is that the generation which sets about destroying culture, undoing, unraveling civilization and culture, it takes the benefit of both tradition and modernity. It takes the freedom of modernity, security of tradition, and then having the best of the both worlds, it dismantles the old world. And it is actually the generations which come after that which have to bear the consequence of the destruction of that culture and that civilization. The question again comes is that how to stop that. So we have to keep telling stories. We have to keep telling them the hidden role that culture plays in each individual's life. I will once again give an example from nature. That in the West there are I read a book which is a wonderful book about just about one piece of earth, the tropical nature. But the two authors, one of them is now dead, Adrian Forsyth and Ken Miata, they did an experiment, a very small experiment. They calculated the monetary cost of keeping 1 square feet of tropical jungle absolutely clean and well running throughout a year. The cost ran in millions of dollars, which nature does it for free. So we have to actually do the same with culture. That what role culture plays when culture disappears. What happens now we have monetized every service. So if you want to go to, if everyone is working in a family, then you have not just the schools, not just playgrounds, but even crashes. So you have monetized it and outsourced it, all of it to other institutions. But if you actually calculate the cost that culture plays, the hidden cost that culture has to bear, hidden roles that culture plays, then the individuals, then our generations will be able to understand that they have actually to sustain it in order to keep taking benefit of the freedom that culture imparts them. So in my view, we have to keep telling stories forcefully, very even if we are to use aggressively, so that they know what culture means in their individual personal life. Because there is one question that they, what we call as millennials or the youth now, that they once again and again throw to us, that how does it matter to us if culture is getting destroyed? If suppose we are getting Christianized or deracinated or whatever word we want to use, how does it concern us? We have to tell them exactly and in stories. Through studying the institutions that still work, that what culture actually means in an individual's life. Like the Hindu temple is still a working institution. Family, in most cases, in most cities, at least in middle tier cities and in villages, is a working institution. Even Jati and Varna, they are also working institutions, because in big cities, the greatest problem, we can discuss on whether Jati and Varna are evil or good, but the greatest problem which stares to 90% of the people, that they no longer know how to marry. The institution of marriage is collapsing mainly because they cannot find valuable partners anymore. So we have to keep telling them these stories. We have to study these institutions in order to make them aware of what culture actually means, the role that it plays in their individual lives.
No, just try and sort of combine what you mentioned with the identity question that HKVG also raised, and at Rashtram we've thought about this as well. If you look at nation as a whole, not just a part of society, it has three essential concerns, right? You have identity, stability, and prosperity. Right? And you need institutions that produce identity. You need institutions or processes that give the representative agency that creates a sense of legitimacy and that can build stability. And then, of course, you let the society exercise its creative impulse to build prosperity. Right? And any sane society works on this principle that it is able to create a system to manage its elderly and transition the knowledge that you have as a generation to your next generation. So all the set of social institutions, the moral, imperative that you're painting, Pankaj, is about sustenance.
Yeah.
As humanity, not just about Indian Hindu civilization. As humanity, how do you tackle this problem of producing knowledge that is worthwhile? How do you actually protect it? How do you disseminate it? And for that, you need a set of interlocutors who are able to forcefully articulate. And it's, and the point that you made about how do humans learn. So it's a question of how do we learn, how do we remember, how do we then pass that knowledge on. And storytelling has to become a part of that.
Yeah.
And cultural creatives, the point that HKVG mentioned, a big element of that creative storytelling is actually creating consciousness through these stories and deriving meaning or sort of sense making exercise through stories. So, we are combining the philosophy, the social sort of need with some qualities that we need to see in people, not just because it's important at a local scale and there is also a global void, but it is, essentially the very need of humanity itself to be able to actually sustain. Right? So I just want to lob it back to Hariji about if we agree that this is a problem and cultural leadership is the need to resolve this problem, how do we think about this idea called cultural leadership? What should that look like? You mentioned certain qualities about cultural creatives, but is there a difference between a cultural creative who, let's say, has some fluency and has some sort of moral imagination and a leader? And what is it that we need to set out? How do we look at the time, space, cause, continuum in this?
I think we are fortunate. We are very, very fortunate that advancement that they have. So if you look at it from a perspective of collectively, they are their search for happiness through objects or through power or through fundamental problem as we define it in Vedanta. Collectively, their search for happiness has failed, right? And in this cultural creative are manifestation of this failure, and then the wanting to connect back to the nature, wanting to preserve that nature. All are the fact that there is an end to the happiness that can be found through prosperity. That realization out there in the world, which are looking for this happiness. And I think we are fortunate that there is a market out there which helps us in the tailwind to preserve. What Pankaj is focused on is at the Indian level, very important issue. I from my experience and what we have been working at Indic Academy and how this has developed. So it's not like I set out and in 2015 and say let's develop a 6-dimensional framework. No. On clarity in action, clarity from action. So that is how this theory has developed. This theory has not developed, right? So there's a continuous process of going into the market and doing. There is a continuous bias, continuous. There is no failure is okay because it's an iterative process, right? From this, and why as an institution we are unique, and why we need to use this uniqueness and transplant this to the individual and through as a cultural leader. That's how this has great insight sitting under a tree. No. So if you look at the first aspect of the first dimension of it, if you look at the first three are talking about first and foremost, we are an organization and this cultural leader who are doing all these three things, not just one aspect of it. We have specialists. We have people who are doing protection, fantastic stuff they're doing. We do have some people in promotion, and we have some people in the preservation space. But to do it in an integrated way, that's the key. The culture, a generalist. We cannot, because we have enough specialists. We have enough specialists. We have to. This is what we need to do. This is what we need to do. So therefore, a person who is thinking all around preservation, protection, promotion. The second, that our culture manifests in multiple ways, from a thought to a dance to a philosophical aspect. So therefore, if we do not think about it as an integrated aspect and look at the intellectual aspect, look at the shastras, look at the fighting on the intellectual side, all that into our way of life, our practices, and then go to how does it become a spiritual aspect. This is the second aspect. This is what I call the second one. I call it as the space. In which domain are you in? I'm using the space in terms of not of the Vedantic space, but I'm using the space in terms of a technology, spiritual base. The third thing is why this is important. This time frame is very important, and people might say, the thing is, if you have set out it with a target of saying that you can, 1 billion is your target, 500 million here, 500 million globally, and that's your target. You have to think of a graph which is 100 years. We are going to be active in 30 years. We are just going to be, if we are lucky, there's a kink in the graph. We have done a great job. This kind of thinking, because what happens is the social media is, and every day, you'll have the, and you're seeing that, the government is not doing anything about it. RT is not happening. 2630 is not happening. I mean, these are the you are here running a marathon race. You are here passing the baton from when you were active and you retiring. You're passing the baton. It's a marathon. This is the first perspective. So to think about it from a stamina point of view, you need to the sthita pragnata, the stamina that you need to have. That is very, very crucial in terms of when you are creating the course. The second thing is the reason the time, because of the fact that we are talking about global dynamics. Global dynamics, you need to understand the fact that, like I was talking about, the 300 million people that are there, and karma, and who are on the cusp of moksha, that's a market for you that you would not think if you are not thinking it from a. You see, today, because of Corona, what is going to be my global change? Rajiv has written recently a book about AI and the 5. But he's talking about the same thing. So unless we start thinking about what are the implications of technology on culture in India, and this can only happen if you're able to have a predictive capability. And what is it that we have to do to service that demand? And that's why that. Then we need to talk about the individual. The individual transformation is the most important aspect. Purushata framework that we have. It is, Bharat can survive, everything can, whatever happens, but it is ultimate. And if you do not recognize that it is for you to discover yourself, start offering everything. Loka Sangraha, if you don't think of a selfless service, and then say that, look, I'm ready for Gnana Marga, I'm ready for Moksha. And if you, that framework is very, very important. Whenever I'm looking at any person that we are assisting, I am focused on what is he good at, the first self. What can we do to nurture him to fulfill his potential? Is an artist or is an activist, what kind of proclivity does he have? What kind of vasanas does he have? This is a very, very important aspect, because then it is easy, because the individual transformation. So when I'm saying that I'm an enabler, I'm enabling people to discover themselves. That's in the narrative. I seek to change the narrative. It's not at all important for me the narrative. Measure that in the last 5 years, I have made an intervention to X number of people. A very big intervention, but you have enabled, you have empowered, you have transformed, you have set that person on the path of transformation. And this is a very, very important, that they should only focus on the narrator and not the narrative. You see, this is very important. The ecosystem. People talk about building the ecosystem. First and foremost, as a you should not have a view. The moment you have a view, then you're gone. You're become because you cannot. You see, the moment you have a view, then you're not accepting. You're getting into another problem. The moment you suspend your views, right, then you are embracing. You have to remember that we are fighting for pluralism. Having a very strong view about one particular person or a view or on this thing, then how can you go about fighting for pluralism? This is the problem. If you say I'm fighting for pluralism, how does it work? So that is why it is important that you need to not have a view. You need to be an infrastructure. Ecosystem has two elements. It has a living element and a non-living element. A non-living element, you have to be the non-living element. You have to be just the infrastructure and help diverse. Me, are you a trad or a raita? I will say I'm a biryani made from a traditional recipe eaten with raita. So that is what I am. And this, to be non-egoistic, to take whatever is hit in your chin and then be an infrastructure builder. Grants, whatever it is, constantly seek collaborations, non-egoistic collaborations, and ensure people connect. And that is important. And it goes back to preservation in isolation is not happening. Preservation in isolation is not happening. Virtuous cycle between preservation and promotion. That virtuous cycle has to happen. And if it is promotion, then the first question you should ask is, who is my customer? Once you define your target audience, then all the things, all the knowledge that you have in terms of, is it a product, is it a service, or is it an experience? These are the three things. Everything has to be a product or an experience. This is the most important thing that we need to think. Define your customer, convert your knowledge. So today, if I'm giving grant to any person, I'm saying the online course in mind. Don't just say, I want to write a book. No, not. You have to convert it into a service. Treat and convert it into an experience. You see, I will put you into Haridwar and or Rishikesh, and the same knowledge that you have, let's say Drik Drishya Viveka, and you're teaching me that, I convert into a course, and then I'm taking you to the Ganges at the Arati and giving you an experience. So a product, service, and experience. This is the most important thing. Or experience, they have to be authentic, immersive, and transformative. This is very important. If it is not authentic, the global millennial immersive, because everything is about bhakti. This is the most important thing. It has to be immersive. And then the checkpoint is, are you transformed with this knowledge, service? Or if you see this framework that we are talking about, all the things, what is your cause? What is the space you are in? What kind of time frame you are looking at? Are you looking at the individual growth? Qualities that you are talking about have to be there. So this is where it's a robust framework that has emerged. This now, from an institutional level, has to be converted to the individual, so that every constituency we have cultural leaders and create and revive our culture.
Really, a lot of us have been beneficiaries of the ecosystem that you have enabled. And, through the spirit of what you mentioned, we would also want to become institutions that are then able to amplify and increase the impact. That actually is also the work that we are busy with at Rashtram as well. Our focus is obviously on public leadership and cultural leadership as an important dimension of public leadership within the civil society space. And how do we take these ideas and how do we blend that into a curriculum? How do we make this a course that is able to deliver certain outcomes? Transformation process, how do we mentor people through the journey? This is the work that Pankaj and I would be busy doing over the next 1 year to research, come out with ideas on how this translates into a academic sort of output, and then we offer it. And I think it's important to clarify that there are two things that we have in mind. One is the Rastram Accelerator program itself, which is grounded in a lot of concepts that we've already discussed, which is about generating self-aware and civilizationally assured leaders based on Indic knowledge systems. Which is about making sure that some of the qualities that you mentioned, the best practice for this is actually in the Indic knowledge systems. If you look at vision or the long range sort of drishti that you mentioned, how do you develop the drishti? What is the refinement process? What sort of emotional, psychological, spiritual intelligences you need to develop to be able to see the multiple
Sorry, I
forces
lost you.
at play? And there is a specific method to this in the Indic way. So some of these things have to become the curriculum for public leadership. And the cultural leadership, the way we are imagining it now, is sort of a top up on the 11-month fellowship leadership course that we're doing, where we are able to bring all of the work that we've done going into the making of a public leader, but specialize in this aspect of culture. There is the dimension of intercultural intelligence. There is also the aspect of cultural fluency. There is also the important dynamic of leadership communication, articulating culture. All of these things would be the focus of this course. That is as part of the leadership course that we're doing. Apart from that, the other sort of vision and mandate that we have for this center is to generate, let's call them people with cultural fluency or culture designers who are able to work at three levels. One is at the local level to understand and assimilate their culture. At a leadership level, to translate people's aspirations into a concretized form, which can then be given as an input to the policy making bodies, whether it is a local politician who is able to embed that into a manifesto, or a party that is able to take that up as an issue. We would want to generate, like you said, political capital for cultural issues. And true Indic Renaissance will not happen through the political power; it will happen through the intransient power of culture. And I go back to what really set me on the path that I'm on now. It was actually quite strangely, although it was on social media. It said that you might have power, but they have your children, and it's important to reclaim our children and, like we said, show them that the real power of inheritance that we have as a civilization is in its lived wisdom. So that is what we take as a mandate for this center, and I think we've sort of summarized the need, the what, and the how in terms of these frameworks. I'll offer, I'll request any closing comments from you, HariKiran Ji, and then by Pankaj.
Yeah, thank you for that point. I'm very excited about this whole. Very excited because group, and then few years back I sent out a mail saying that the three institutions that I want. Esalen Institute in US, just because they do a number of workshops, and wherein there is a workshops in a retreat format. And I believe that voluntary education, because I don't need to learn for a job on a voluntary basis. So voluntary education is best given in a non-university environment is one hypothesis I have in a retreat. Second is Aspen. Somehow it's always been very fascinating about how Aspen grew into a leadership institution. So, and the third, complexity and using. So there is a desire for these three institutions kind of thing it to be blended in Indic Academy. So today, with the launch, so one box is being ticked in the sense that there's a hope that this will become like an Aspen kind of a institute for cultural leaders. In fact, about cultural leaders somewhere, but the kind of the work that this center is going to do, I think this is very unique. There's no other where in the world for leadership, which is define cultural leadership separately and then trying to create courses like this. This is going to be very unique contribution, I would say. And yeah, so this is a transformative journey with Rashtram, and our values are aligned, and I'm really excited. And Pankaj is going to be the framework and the hardcore courses, and I'm going to be the bullshitter. So I will come as guest faculty and bullshit my way out. Good theory basis, and then a good guy who will come and talk something from experience. So yeah, so looking forward.
For cultural leadership, how do you think about this, and how are you looking at it?
I'm obviously very excited because, like you said, that we might have power, but they have our children. So the challenge that we have set ourselves is how to get our children back. That is a very great challenge. So it will be intellectually very challenging. One reason that I came to Rashtram is that I wanted to be in a more intellectually challenging environment. And I think that having this as our goal will keep us exercised
Busy.
for a while. Yes. So I look forward to it.
All right. Fantastic. Thank you so much, HariKiran Ji, again for firstly enabling the institutional infrastructure, for giving us that elevated vision of surrendering yourself in the service of building this ecosystem. And I think that's something that that we take as an attitudinal input as we grow, not just as an institution, but also the transformation that you spoke about, which begins with us. So thank you for that. And we would keep everyone posted about the activities of this center. But this begins with the accelerator course. The applications for that are open, and I'd encourage everyone who's interested in this to check out our applications page. And if you have any questions on what is it that we are going to teach, what do we mean by public leadership, or what we mean by civilizational inheritance, we are always available for a conversation. So thank you, and stay tuned for more activities and research and courses coming out of the center in future.